Hello and welcome to today's webinar, How to Get Started with Tstream Editor. My name is Stephanie. I'm one of the linguists from Explanation in Belgium. I'm based in the headquarters in Leuven, and so very warm welcome for me. And I'm going to show you the basic features of Tstream Editor today. But first of all, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to attend today's webinar, also on behalf of our partner management team. So what are we going to talk about today? So here's our agenda for today. Well, first of all, starting with Tstream Editor, opening files in Tstream Editor, the basic navigation, and then some features, the basic features in Tstream Editor. Then I'm going to share some tips and tricks with you. And at the end, provided we still have enough time, I'm going to answer some questions. Just before we dive into Tstream Editor, if there are any technical glitches during the webinar, please use the little question panel and drop me a line so that I can immediately solve that. It would be a shame if we lose time and you cannot follow the webinar properly. So just but any other questions I'm going to handle at the end of my presentation. So okay, then let's get started with Tstream Editor. I'm going to quickly change over to Tstream Editor. So once you've downloaded the files from our partner portal, including all kinds of reference material, instructions, and so on that you got from the project manager, you can open this file in Tstream Editor. Tstream Editor is our very own CAT tool, and we also use a special file format, as you might have seen already. Just to remind you, this webinar is mostly geared towards new partners who have not worked with us before, or not so much. So if you're already like one of the more seasoned translators with Explanation, I'm also doing another webinar tomorrow that is called Advanced Features of Tstream Editor, just to let you know. So once you've downloaded the file, they're called LWO files, our own file format. You can open them in Tstream Editor. Just a quick word about these LWO files. You cannot open them outside Tstream Editor, so they're not compatible with any other CAT tool, and you cannot open any other file format but LWO files in Tstream Editor. Another wee word of warning, please do not change the names of the files, because they have a unique code, like a couple of figures, and but they need to stay like this. Otherwise, we cannot process them in our system anymore, and they get stuck. I mean, we all have the, well, I can say, at least for myself, I also have the tendency of renaming files saying German or done or whatever, but please don't do that, because then we have more trouble further down the line. Okay, so how do we go about translating in Tstream Editor? This is our main goal today. I'm going to show you step by step how we process a file in Tstream Editor. And no worries, if there are any questions, or if you want me to repeat anything, if I'm going too fast, just let me know at the end. I'm more than happy to repeat things or to explain it in further detail. Okay, so this is Tstream Editor. You can either create folders here. So if you're working on several projects at a time and you want to sort it a wee bit, just click here on this folder, and then you can create a folder structure. Or you can just simply add the file by clicking here on this little icon. So I've already just saved the files on my desktop, and then can add them. Just hoping I got the right one for you now. Let's see. Yes, this is an untranslated file that I wanted to show you today. Just checking whether there are already any questions or whether you can hear me all right. Okay, no questions so far, so I assume I can just keep on going. Okay, good. Yeah, so just to give you the lay of the land, on the left-hand side you have the source text. I picked a English into German file here, since this is my main combination. And then on the right-hand side, you have the German target text. I'm going to take you quickly through the layout so that you know what's what. Here on the right-hand side, you have statistics. Then if there's any terminology available, you can see it here. And then notes, bookmarks, internal clipboard, and the exclude from TM feature. I'm going to explain all of those in more detail at a later stage. I'm just going to quickly show you everything. So, and here in this part, underneath the source and the target text, this is the part where we will be working. So, just to show you what the file looks like when it arrives and you start working on it. So as I said, left-hand side is the source text, right-hand side is the target text. There is a segmentation, as you can see here. Unlike in other CAD tools, you cannot merge segments. So if there are broken segments, there's nothing we can do about it. Just have to work with it or work our way around it. So there's no way that we can merge segments once they are set in the LWO files. So we have different colors. For those of you who want to know more about the different colors, I'm going only quickly touching upon the colors. There is our Tstream Editor guide where they're all explained in detail because there's so many different categories. I'm just going to show you the most important ones, but it would take up too much time to explain them all. But you can read the exact definitions in our help guide. I'm going to show you as well where to find this. So here you can see already these turquoise fuzzy matches. Then we have some 100% matches. Here we have some new text that needs to be translated. This is a 100% match, repeated match. So this is what the file will look like when you open it. The goal is that at the end everything is translated into your target language so that there's no blank segments left. Okay, so how do we start? We go to the first segment and then we can work here. Okay, so you have different options. You can take over the translation memory suggestion here. If you like the match, you can double click on the gray bar and then it's automatically pasted into your translation segment here. And then you can also edit. Of course, you can see here, this is a fuzzy match. This bit here with explanation is missing, so I can also delete that in German. And then we're good to go. The same goes for any other segment. You can also take over the source. If you say, okay, this is a slogan, a tagline, this is the name of the company, I'm going to just copy the source text, just click on the gray bar and then it's automatically pasted into your translation segment here. As I've been working with this text before, there's also my own previous human translation here. Okay, so here you can see a little chain as well. I hope you can see that. If you click on that, you can see the repeated matches. So I'm currently working in the master segment, so to speak, and all of those are then the repetitions. You can also, I'm just going to save this first. So now you can also see that the color changed. Now it changed from a fuzzy match to a human translation. So the orange is the human translation. So here you can see then the repetitions afterwards. You can also edit those, but you can see that they are blocked by this red bar saying do not edit except for essential linguistic reasons. So you can edit them, but this only affects then this segment and not the others, and not the master segment here. This is of course perfectly fine if you have a good reason to change a repeated match, then please do so by all means. So I'm going back then to the first segment. I just wanted to show you this in case you're already wondering what this is. Okay, so you have different options to navigate through Tstream Editor. You can either use those blue arrows here and move up and down. but we also have shortcuts. I would always recommend using the shortcuts because that saves you time, and you also don't have to accept every match, because otherwise every segment. Otherwise, you see now I clicked here accepted, and then I would have to move forward by using the blue arrows. But there's a way that's a lot easier. You just use the shortcuts, and the shortcut to move through the segment is Alt and down and Alt and up. This has the advantage that you don't have to accept all your segments individually, and B, we had the case that some translators also accepted 100% matches, repeated matches, and so on and so forth, and then they're also turned into human translation. So this also dilutes the statistics for the revisers and for every other person involved. Further down the line, it's more complicated to establish, okay, is this a 100% match or repeated match, and why was this changed? So I would always recommend using the shortcuts, and then you also don't have to use a mouse. Anyway, if you want to use the icons, you have here accept, and here you can empty the entire segment, and here you can move up and down. Here, this little pin is a bookmark. Just going to take over and then if you click on that, it appears here under bookmarks. You can see each segment has a code, and then you can double click on it, and it takes you immediately back to the segment that you bookmarked. So if you want to say okay, I still need to think about that, I'm going back to the segment at a later stage, just click on this little pin and bookmark, put a bookmark there so that you can find it back more easily. Then we have exclude from translation memory. Why do we have exclude from translation memory? There for several reasons. One of them being the segmentation that I just mentioned. So if you have a broken segment, or you have to combine two segments and they do not correspond anymore syntactically in your target language, then we would kindly ask you to exclude them from the TM. I always have a standard example. For instance, if it says in English, please press the button, and I have to change that round in German and say just Knopf drücken, and then I have two segments that would not correspond anymore because the word order is changed around. So I would exclude both from the translation memory so that they would not turn up in a subsequent translation. I hope that this is clear. If you have any questions about that, I'm more than happy to explain that again later on. Just for the sake of completeness, that you know that this little red exclamation mark is the exclude from TM feature. So then we have the notes. Click on this little pen here, and then you can leave a note. And then the note also appears here, and then you can also double click on it. It takes you back to the segment. A couple of words about the notes. It's always nice if you've done research on a term and that you add also some sort of reference for the reviser, so that he or she knows for what reason. I mean, not for every term, but if it's really specific, and that saves the reviser time as well. And another thing is, if you have questions about the text or any other queries, please do not use the note feature then, because if it's a question that we need to pass on to the client for clarification, the project manager won't see the LWO file as such and won't see the notes. So if you have any questions that we need to A, pass on to the client, or B, pass on to all the other translators involved, because your language might not be the only one that's affected, please always keep the project manager in the loop. That's much appreciated, because then we have still time enough to clarify any questions. Okay, you can also expand all these windows here. Just click on the little red triangle here in the corner, and then you can see everything in more detail. and then I'll just collapse it again. Same goes for the nodes. I can also just delete my node again and done. Okay, before we move on, another thing about the layout before I forget it, you can see here those two blue arrows as well. We have a new page layout in Tstream Editor. I think we introduced it like a year ago. So for those of you who've worked with us before, you might already you might still be familiar with the old layout. Well, this enables us to load bigger files more easily, and but you can also customize the page layout because there's only a limited number of segments per default. So just go to Tools, Preferences, and then, yeah, of course it's not here now, I'm sorry. Tools, Define Navigation Settings, Page Size, there it is. I'm sorry about that. And here I set the number of segments to the maximum because I like to have most of the text on one page. I think per default it's set to 25 segments or something. So if you start out with Tstream Editor and you think, okay, where's my text? Just increase the page size so that you have also more context on. Otherwise, you will. But there's no need to hop from one page to the next. It's automatically done. But I just like to scroll through my text. Again, it's under Tools, Define Navigation Settings. Page size. If you have a merged file, however, a merged file is, for instance, a newsletter containing several articles or several smaller files that have been merged by the project manager, they will always appear on different pages. So no matter how much you expand the page size, they will always remain on different pages because it's a merged file. Okay, so we had all this, we had this, and then I'm going to also show you how you can customize the layout. This is under Tools, Preferences, View. So per default, we have this side-by-side view, but you can also have it horizontally arranged. So whatever you feel like works best for you, you can basically customize anything in Tstream Editor. Also the font size. So if you say, okay, this is too small or this is too big, you can also adapt the font size. And here you have the different colors, as I said. I'm not going to explain all of them in detail, but here you can see it's context matches, 100% matches, fuzzy matches, and so on. Human translations, revisions, repeated matches, and so on and so forth. As I said, a more detailed explanation on that is in the Tstream Editor guide. The shortcuts can also be customized. So if you want to have different shortcuts to move through the text, just enter the current combination here and then the new combination there. Yeah, whatever works best for you, you can customize it. Yeah, you can even customize the colors if you want to. But another thing that I'd recommend is that you tick here Microsoft Office for the spell checker. Currently on this computer I have the integrated Tstream spell checker, but this is not as good as the Microsoft Office one. So per default this is ticked here, but if you set up Tstream Editor, just go to Preferences, Spell Checking, and then activate Microsoft Office. Another thing that I'd recommend is that you activate is Report Doubled Words. So, I mean, it happens to all of us when we're typing, and then suddenly you have a word doubled because you were interrupted. So then this is flagged in the spell check as well. Okay, I'm just checking whether any of you have any questions. Okay, I have one of you who can't hear or see me. Is it a general problem, or is it all right now? Ah, no, you can see and hear me. Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you for confirming. Oh gosh, it was a bit alarmed now, but okay, then that's all fine. Thank you. Because we had some technical issues in the past, so I'm always happy when everything works fine. Okay, so let's move on to our translation now. I'm of course not checking each and every segment. So I'm moving on now. And I'm going to show you also how to use the terminology. So in here, for instance, I will accept the match, and so Tstream Editor has also an auto complete function. So if you start typing any word that either appears in the source text or in the match or in the terminology window here, in the terminology pane, it will be automatically completed. So if I start typing, let's say Textinhalte, it's automatically completed. I just press enter and then it's done. Same goes for anything that appears in the terminology window. So if I don't have umlaut on this keyboard. Okay, so let's see. Well, anyway, so but you get the idea. Just type any word that appears here in the terminology window or in any of the segments, and it will automatically complete it if you start typing and then press enter. Otherwise, you can also double click on the term and then it will be pasted automatically in the segment. Okay, another thing I'd like to show you is how to skip segments. So if you press Control, Shift and left click on the blue arrows here, you get this window. And then you can say, okay, I'm going to skip context matches and 100% matches, repeated matches, whatever. Do not forget to tick this box here as well. Apply also to next button, because otherwise it works only in one direction. Just one thing about the skipping. Please read the instructions from the project manager, because of course it's fine to skip context matches, 100% matches, if the client also asks us to do so. So for instance, if this is content has been approved by the client and there's only a couple of segments that need to be translated and adapted or something, then you can skip context matches and 100% matches. But I would not encourage you to use this as a default function. Okay, so now you can see this little black exclamation mark here that appears next to the blue arrow. So there you can see that you have activated a skipping. This is skipping. Okay, so I'm moving on. Here you can also see that now the segment changed from a fuzzy match to orange to the human translation, because I tinkered with the segment a bit. Okay, so you can see these were automatically skipped because I said I don't want to read any 100% matches. So I arrive at the next completely empty segment. And here we can see something else I'd like to show you, namely the tags or references. Those of you who are familiar with Tag Editor, for instance, this will look familiar to you. So we have those blue, we call them tags or references, and they usually stand for something in the text. Can be here it's probably a hyperlink. A link, hyperlink, colors, fonts, bold and italics, or page break. So it's important that we put them in the right place in the file, in the segment. And but there's also an easy way to do that. So I'm just going to take over my translation here. This needs to be in bold. Oops, sorry. And then I'm going to add the references, but there's no need to copy and paste them. So there's an easy way to do that. Just press F4, and then you get this little drop-down list, and then you can add the references. I mean, you can see now I put them just as in the in the source text around the term. And another thing I need to correct here is the trademark. Okay, and then we're good to move on. If you have lots of those tags or references and they take up a lot of space, you can also, if it like hampers your view, you can also just deactivate the hidden characters, because then they are collapsed like that, you see. But otherwise, I would always encourage you to use the hidden characters, because then you can see double spaces and non-breaking spaces better. But I'm going to talk about the hidden characters later. We just continue a bit with our translation, and then I'm going to show you the basic features here as well. Okay, moving on. Okay, I'm not going to translate everything now. Just see whether we see anything interesting here. Okay. So you can see I can move fairly quickly through the text, and I'm not going to go to the very end, but just to give you an idea what it looks like when you start translating a completely new text for us. Okay. I just need a drop of water. So what do we do once we're done with our translation? No, first of all, I'm going to take you through the basic features, and then I'm going to wrap up the translation and do all the spell checking and consistency checks and stuff. Okay, so we have save here, print. You can also print target or source text. I mean, if you still like to proofread on paper, that's entirely possible. You can also print text, source and target side by side. So print feature, and then here's undo and redo, cut, copy and paste, and then find in source, find in target, find in the local TM. The local TM is it's a local translation memory that stores up to 30,000 segments of the work that you've done before. So anything that you've translated in a given language combination is stored in the local TM. So if you say, okay, I've done something like that the previous week, you can always look it up in your local TM as well. Then we have the spell checker here. There is usually a PDF file of the source text, so that you can see the text in the original layout. I usually have a second screen, so I put the file on the second screen so that I can see where I am, because you need to know whether it's a header or footer, or here you can see these need to be pretty short and snappy, so just to have an idea where you are. Unfortunately, a Tstream Editor does not have a preview feature, unlike other CAT tools, so there's no way that you can already have a preview of what your translation will look like in the final layout, but I found out that the source text is also quite handy, so I would always have a look, especially when you're working with PowerPoints and the like. Okay, here we have bold, italics, underline, subscript, and superscript. Again, here you can change your everything and tailor it or customize it. And then we have the hidden characters here. I always activate hidden characters so that I can also see non-breaking spaces and double spaces. Yeah, I hope you can see these little blue dots here. These indicate spaces, and a non-breaking space looks like this in Tstream Editor. I hope you can see that alright. It's like a little bubble, and we use them quite a bit in German, so it's quite important to see them. One thing that I'd also like to mention already, even though I'm also going to mention it tomorrow in the advanced webinar, is quotation marks, since I'm talking about German here already, because quotation marks are not automatically converted in Tstream Editor, and no matter which keyboard you use or which language settings you have, the quotation marks will always look like this. I hope you can see that. So they're not converted afterwards. So it's quite important that you already use the correct quotation marks and use the shortcuts. So for instance, the German quotation marks look like that, and the French ones like this. You might still have other quotation marks in your languages, but just to let you know already, even though this is more advanced, but yeah, just so that you know. Okay. And here, if you click on this question mark here, there you can find our, if you click here on Tstream Editor Guide, you can find our new how to use Tstream Editor Guide. It has been completely reworked last year or beginning of this year. And so any question you might have about Tstream Editor, it's all in here. Talking about questions, you can also always ask us. Do not hesitate. You can send an email to partnermanagement@explanation.com, and if there are any more technical questions, they will also pass them on to me. So do not hesitate. So if you say, okay, I listened to the webinar, but I still have a questions afterwards, or how did she do that again? Do not hesitate. I'm always happy to help with questions. Okay. Something else I'd like to show you as well is the search and replace, because that's quite handy. Because there's more to it than meets the eye. You can click here on more, and then you get different options. So you can also, which is quite handy for languages that use capital letters, you can also say match case or whole words only. I use this quite a bit for German because we also have compound words. So if I want to replace something, just going to show you how this works. I'm not going to replace anything now. I'm just going to show you how the search in general works. So I'm looking for Tstream, and then you can see the results here. So everything that matches is highlighted in yellow and red, and then you have different options. You can also remove them, and if you want to replace something, let's say I want to replace Tstream by Tstream with a capital letter, then I can say replace, so that would be only that segment, replace all in the sentence, or replace all. I can also remove them from the list. So if I have some false positives, I want to remove them, then you can remove them from the result list. Just one word of warning, if you go for replace all, you cannot undo this unless you close the file and you do not save it. So I'd always be careful unless you're 100% sure that you really want to replace everything in the file. I mean, here this is a fairly small file, but if you're working on a big manual of 50,000 odd words, then it might not be a good idea to replace everything in one go. I mean, sometimes it's perfectly fine and possible, but just so that you know, there's no way of undoing it. Okay, I'm just quickly looking at my watch and also what I still have on my list, what I'm going to show you. Okay, so basically, what do we do once we've finished our translation? Two things, well, three things actually. The first thing is we're running a spell check. Okay, as I said, now I'm using the integrated spell check, which is not as good as the Word one. So I have lots of false positives here. There's no possibilities to replace things here, or like in Word say, okay, please use this, right click on it. You have to go back to the segment by double clicking on it, and then you can change the segment then. You can see here the term that is allegedly wrong is already highlighted in yellow. You can also say ignore all in this sentence or ignore everywhere, so so that they won't turn up in your spell check anymore. Another thing is that you can over time build a custom dictionary, because I mean we all know that not every technical term is in the dictionary, and so you also have the possibility to say add to custom dictionary, so it won't be flagged in any of your translations anymore. I have that with, for instance, with lots of German acronyms, because they're always flagged in the spell checker, and so over time I just put them in my custom dictionary so that I'm not bothered with them anymore. You can manage the custom dictionary if you click here on this little icon, and then you can see the terms that you've added. I mean, here this is not my computer, so there's not all of them. It's just the ones that I've added from this text here. Okay, just need a drop of water. I'm sorry. Okay. Another thing that we do at the end, once we've done with the spell check, is the consistency check. It's right next to it. Just click here on the red icon, and then we run the consistency check. Just quickly checking whether there are any questions, whether you can still hear me all right. But it seems all fine. Good. Okay, I'm going to look into all of your questions in more detail, but it seems that everything is okay. Good. So the consistency check at the end of our translation. I always say in the consistency check, we check everything that can possibly go wrong in a translation, ranging from missing punctuation to missing brackets, terminology not being observed, quotation marks not correct, and so on and so forth. But don't be alarmed if you see a long list, because there's lots of things, but not everything is really a mistake. So over time you will get used to it, and there's also, so you can see all the different categories here, and then you can click on this little plus sign and then collapse it, and then you don't have to go back to each and every segment. Just scan here what's the matter here, and then I can already see, okay, matching dashes. There's no dash in English, but there's a dash in German, because it just makes it nicer to read. So no need to check this. You see here it's highlighted in red and yellow, the possible mistake. Okay, I'm going to collapse this. Done. And then matching digits. Okay. Of course, I have some mistakes in here now because we didn't translate the file properly. So you can see here that there are digits missing. So this I would need to correct. Then missing punctuation. So here's a semicolon, while in German there's a full stop. So this also need to be checked. I'm not going to go to every segment now, because I also want to give you some time for questions. And here you can see mismatched references. So if you manage to save a file without saving the tags or references, this will also be flagged in the consistency check. If you then still manage to upload the file without the references or tags, then the project manager will probably approach you, because then it gets stuck in our system. Here, terminology. Also, again, don't be alarmed if you see the whole list, because of course it doesn't take into account any grammar endings or irregular plural forms. I have that regularly for German as well. If you have irregular plural forms, then but please make sure that you double check it, and you can just scan the list here in the consistency check. Okay. Also make sure that you've adapted all fuzzy matches. Of course, I have lots of untranslated fuzzy matches here now and untranslated segments, because we've only done a couple of segments here. Okay, but also again, if you have any questions about the consistency check where you're not sure, just don't hesitate to ask us. They're more than happy to answer any question. Okay, another thing that we have to do is okay. And so now we've done the translation, we've done a spell check, we've done a consistency check. Then we save the file, and then you can close it. And that's basically it. And then you can upload it in the system again. I'm just going quickly. Okay, so I'm quickly logging on to PartnerWeb. This is something you are also familiar with. And then you can upload the file. Because the third thing that, of course, I need to find a different file, I'm sorry. The third thing that we need to do is that we are filling in the checklist. Those of you who have translated for us before, you might not be familiar with the checklist because it's a fairly recent development, but we have a checklist now for each assignment. So there were already some questions from translators. You can find the link to the checklist here underneath the statistics, and so you cannot upload the file unless you've completed the checklist. So double click here on the link, and then you can tick here everything that is applicable in the checklist, submit the checklist, and then you can upload the file as well. So then the link appears, and you can upload the file. So don't be alarmed if you if you cannot upload the file. You first need to fill in the checklist. Another thing that I can show you while we're here, because I also get that question fairly regularly, where is the concordance in Tstream Editor? The concordance search is not integrated in Tstream Editor. It's here. You can find it here on the partner portal under every assignment. So just click on this link here. It says TM Concordance 4, and then you click on it, and then you can access it here. So then I can look for a term, and then it's client specific and language specific. So this is Dutch into German. Okay, I'm going to log out. I hope that this is all clear, and then I'm going to be going back to Tstream Editor. And yeah, I'd say the floor is yours now. I'm going to look at your questions. I hope that everything was clear so far, but I'm going to take a look now what I can repeat or explain to you again. Okay, let's see what we have. Okay, so there are a couple of you who want me to explain the shortcuts again, especially the quotation marks and the skipping. Okay, that I can do, no problem. Okay, so the quotation marks first. There's also a list of all shortcuts in the Tstream Editor guide, so you can also consult that, but I can also show you quickly the quotation marks for French. One of the questions was French is Alt 174 and Alt 175, and these are the quotation marks for French. And the skipping is Control, Shift, and left click on any of those two blue arrows. And then you get this window, and then you can skip segments. Okay, I'm going to go back to the questions. Okay, let's see. what we have. Okay, I might not be able to answer all your questions today, but you can also my colleagues from partner management will also export the questions, and you can also send an email afterwards. They usually send around a survey, and if you have any questions still, then feel free to drop me a line, and then I'm going to answer them one by one. Okay, there's one question about the exclude from TM. Yeah, well, it excludes the segment from the translation memory, so it's perfectly fine in your translation then, but it won't turn up in subsequent translations in the next translation as match, because yes, for instance, if you change the word order, or if a segment was not well prepared and it's broken, so we don't want any false matches turn up in our translation, because if you then in turn skip any segments and you don't check them and they turn up as a 100% match, then yeah, we might get into some trouble. For instance, I saw once a list of countries that were not excluded properly, and then I had a match saying Portugal and then Slovakia in German. So then the order was changed around, and yeah, that can create some havoc. Another question about the color codes. It does not affect anybody, but it's just your own settings in Tstream Editor. I also had somebody once who wanted to change the background because she didn't like the yellow background. So feel free to tinker with the color. So anything, it's completely up to you. And my colleagues from partner management told me yesterday that we also have sample files that are sent out with the starter kit. So if you want to tinker with some files and try out things, exclude things, hop those segments, feel free to experiment with those files. And yeah, same goes for the custom dictionary. It's just for you, and just for it's only applies then to your settings in Tstream Editor. So there's no way that it affects anybody else further down the line. Okay, there's another question about the consistency check and how it gets stuck after delivery. That only applies when we have mismatched references. It's called mismatched references. So if those tags and references I showed you, you know, the wee blue icons, if they're not in the right place or not, I should say if they're not there. So if you have uploaded a file where there are reference missing, then this can create problems after the delivery. But then we will get in touch as well. So but actually you cannot save the file properly if the tags are missing, and it will also be flagged in the consistency check. Okay, we have a question about also the local TM. Where is it saved by default? This is a question I would have to pass because this I don't know for sure. So I would need to check with our technical department. But I can come back to you on that question. Okay. There's another question about when I change a segment upon self-editing. I'm not sure I understand what you mean. Okay. I'm going to go over the questions again if I missed anything. But as I said, if you have any more detailed questions, feel free to write to us again, to get in touch, and then I can also give you an informed answer. And sometimes you also put me on a stop a wee bit. There's another question about how can I mark up false positives? You can't. You can just right click on them and say ignore or remove from the list. So, but this doesn't have consequences for anybody but you. The reviser will still be able to see everything in the consistency check. Now I get it. So if you edit a translation and you correct it, well, the TM is only updated, well, on our side at least, and also your local TM, once you've saved the final version and you close the file, and then it will be updated. So there's no way that a false translation will enter into the TM. So if you correct any mistake by the end and upon delivery everything is fine, then the false translations will not enter into the TM. I hope that answers the question. Okay, another question about notes for clients. The best way is to write an email to the project manager, because as I said, the project manager does not see the LWO file because it's passed on from you as a translator to the reviser through the system, and they won't see the LWO file and the notes. So if you have any questions that you want us to clarify with the client, please send them an email. And that's always appreciated, because then we can inform other translators involved in the project and also contact the client in due time. As I said, if it's something linguistic where you want to leave a note for the reviser saying, I opted for this version because, or the project manager told me to write this translation more freely, this is why I chose this. This is completely fine. And that also, I also see that quite a bit in my capacity as a reviser, and that's always appreciated. If I can understand the train of thought from the translator as well. But don't spend too much time on explaining each and every step. It's just we don't want you to leave notes for every segment. But if you really have questions that we need to pass on to the client, then it's best if you contact the project manager in charge directly. Okay. Any other questions? I'm still here for 5 minutes. Also some more if you need me, and I'm more than happy to answer some questions. Okay. Anything else? Anything you want me to repeat? Then. Okay, seems all. Yes, another question about the webinar. Yes, it will be made available on YouTube, and we need to edit it a wee bit first. So give us some time, but then the partner managers will also share the link with you. And as I said, they will also send around a survey so that you can also give us some feedback on the webinar. So if you want me to improve anything, that's much appreciated. And if that's all, then there's only one thing that remains for me to do. That is to say thank you very much. Thanks for taking the time to attend today's webinar. And yeah, also on behalf of the partner management team. And I'm looking forward to our collaboration and to hear from you. So thanks a lot, and have a nice afternoon.